Hello, Latin 3. We are beginning today, having finished now that story that we were reading about Concilium Domitiani, which was a follow-on of Epistola Agricolae, that we were doing all that back in the building. We're beginning something brand new. Now, this would have been a preparation for your SGO retake. SGOs, I don't know if you have heard, have in fact been canceled for this year just because of the complete impossibility of us being able to effectively do them. So what we're doing instead, we're going to do a little mini unit in Julius Caesar. Latin 4 spends the first half of the year reading a lot of Caesar, and then the second half of the year reading Virgil. And since I've accelerated the program over the last several years, I've actually begun to dabble a little bit in some of the curriculum for Latin 4 in the second half of Latin 3. And so we're going to read the first several sentences of Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars. Let's begin. Now, your handout is a 2-page PDF. We're going to actually just do page 1 in this video because your class meets only today and Thursday. And so we're really going to be reading only 2 sentences. The first one's really easy and the second one is really difficult. And so it'll be enough for 1 week. Next week, when we have 3 class periods, we will finish the second half of that PDF, and then there will be another one that will have a follow-on. So first off, a little background of Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars, and also just a little bit of grammatical exploration of the first sentence. So, Julius Caesar, as I think you know, he had gone to Gaul in order to serve as the governor of what's called Cisalpine Gaul, meaning just that tiny little bit of Gaul on the other side on the Italian side of the Alps, and also just the southern shore of modern-day France on the Mediterranean Sea. Everything to the north was uncharted territory. It was wild. It had Celtic tribes in there. Julius Caesar was deep in debt. What he really needed was a war that would give him the justification to conquer peoples and make a lot of money. Next year, when we read it, we'll get into great depth about what the casus belli fell upon him that he was able to justify going to war. So he wrote these in little dispatches that he would send back to Rome, and after everything was over and he was the dictator in Rome, he then kind of edited it all. That's really hard to say that. Edited it, yeah. He edited it into what we have today. So it is political propaganda. He is basically, in this book, he is telling you how awesome Julius Caesar is. That's really the point of this book. Okay, first sentence. Famous first sentences. I have met people who studied Latin like 50 years in the past, and they quote this line and are proud of the fact that they can still quote this. Gallia est omnis divisa in partes tres. Gaul is. Okay, so we start off, basically this is as easy as Caecilius est pater. Okay, Gaul is blank. That's what this sentence is. Gaul is. Now, if Gallia est means Gaul is, just on your own. Italia est. Wild guess. That's right, Italy is. Graecia est. That's right, Greece is. Omnis. You know this. It means all. Gaul is all. Now, there are other traditional translations of this. Some people will say like the whole of Gaul is, things like that. But for just a standard translation, Gaul is all divisa. It's the past participle from dividere. Gaul is all divided. Here's the principal part. Fourth principal part is the past participle. In the masculine, it would be divisus. So again, divido, I divide. Dividere, to divide. Divisi, I divided. Divisus, divided. Okay? Domus divisa contra se non stabit. A house divided against itself will not stand. So, just a little practice with past participles. Again, if divisus means divided, what does visus mean if the verb means to see? It means seen. What does auditus mean? It means heard. Missus, sent. So participles are like adjectives. They take masculine and feminine endings and they have the same case as the word they describe. And so, I saw a slave sent to the city would be vidi servum misum ad urbem. And this past participle would have the same ending here because this is a second declension noun. If this were I saw a father sent, it would be patrem, but still misum, because these take the same endings as first and second declension nouns. Caecilius consumit cibum paratum agrumione. When you have an agent of a past participle, you use that preposition a, which we translate here as by. Food prepared by grumio. This is a typo. This should say ab, by the way. Okay, this should say ab because we use ab before vowels. The father read a letter sent by a friend. Food divided between us. Water divided between us. Now you see, look at the difference. Divisus because of kibus. Divisa because of aqua. And that ultimately brings us back to the question of why is it Gallia est omnis divisa? Because it takes feminine. So if you wanted to say Gaul is seen, which one of these three would you pick? Visa. Now, Gallia est divided, divisa. Gaul is all divided. How is it divided? In partes tres, into three parts. Now, these are accusative plurals, and don't forget, accusative after in means into. So you didn't even need to look up partes, hopefully. You knew that it meant parts, because you know that so many Latin words are, in fact, borrowed into English pretty much identically. So take some wild guesses. What would in regiones tres mean? That's right, into three regions. What would in sectiones tres mean? That's right, into three sections. And so the famous first sentence, Gaul is all divided into three parts. Now, just stop and think for a moment how boring this is as first lines go, okay? I mean, like, does he think we actually care? We want to read about the battle, Caesar. Instead, he starts out and he thinks, well, none of this is going to make any sense unless they understand that Gaul is divided into three parts, and so I'd better start there. I mean, it's actually kind of funny as first lines go because it's just horrible. I mean, what are some really good first lines? You know, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. That's a great first line. It grabs you. It makes you want to know what these best of times and worst of times were. As far as I'm concerned, this is a horrible first line. And guess what? Caesar's not done. Okay, this is the last sentence we're going to do today. This is grammatically not terribly difficult. The only problem is, to an extreme example, this sentence is going to employ the grammatical concept you first learned when we read the sentence in Book 2, Britanni cibum laudabant, Romani vinum. So the Britons were praising the food, comma, the Romans, understood, were praising the wine. What Caesar's going to do in this sentence is he's going to tell you about the three places, three parts of Gaul. He's going to tell you who lives in the three places, and he's going to, every time he uses something, he's going to act like he can just assume it for the other three parts. When he gets to the third part, he's going to do it again in an even deeper clause. Okay, so watch as this unfolds. Incolunt is your main verb. It's new to you, it just means to dwell. The only other verb in the passage is appellantur. Quarum, of which, it's referring to the three parts. So into three parts. Of which parts, unam incolunt belgae. Okay? Aliam aquitani. Now what's going to happen here is he's telling us that the Belgae, that's a people, what they do is incolunt. They dwell or they inhabit. And what they inhabit is unam, understood, unam partem, one part. Okay, so Gaul is all divided into three parts. of which the Belgae inhabit one part. Now, I've put this in the word order of the Latin. That's not a good, one part inhabit the Belgae wouldn't make any sense. So again, better English, of course, you're going to want to reverse the word order here. So, of which the Belgae inhabit one part, another the Aquitani. Understood the Aquitani, and that's the name of a people. The Aquitani inhabit another understood part. Now, Latin has a curious thing that when you have a list of three, you'd think you'd say first, second, third. That's not what Latin usually does. Julius Caesar's doing what Latin usually does, and that is, you got three parts. You say one, the other, and a third. Logically in English, we would have been anticipating, one, two, three. They say basically one, another, and then, oh yeah, there's a third. And that's basically what's going on here. So again, the grammar of this is pretty straightforward. The Belgae inhabit one part, the Aquitani inhabit another part. Now, the third. Now, talking about a third part. Understood, there are a people who inhabit the third part. But Caesar has another thought that he feels you have to know about this third part and the people who inhabit it. He is going to now launch off into a second clause inside this, informing you of the fact that the Celts call themselves Celts in their own language, but we Romans call them Gauls. I mean, this is important information that Caesar believes you need. And it goes without saying that these people who they call themselves Celts, we call them Gauls, they inhabit the third part. Okay, so understood. The third, who, qui, ipsorum lingua Celtae, nostra Galli appellantur. Of their own in the language Celts, this will make sense as we break this out. Appellant, they call. But what do we have? We have a passive. Appellantur, they are called. Okay, so here's all the pieces, and I'm going to show you what it really should look like when we're done here. So the third, who are called, appellantur. So we're going to actually need to go all the way down here for the verb. The third, who are called, lingua. There would be a long mark here. This is an ablative. So in the language of themselves, are called Celts. Okay? But then nostra, this is again an ablative, meaning our language. Okay? I mean, just look at how he is assuming things over and over again. Okay? And so this is the best English translation, adding back all this. A third, who are called Celts in their own language and are called Gauls in our language. Understood, they, the Celts, who call themselves Celts in their language, and who we call Gauls, dwell or inhabit the third part. Okay, so what you've seen in Julius Caesar so far is typical Julius Caesar. An easy sentence, followed by just a crazy grammatically complicated sentence. Okay, this is normal for Caesar. I promise you, however, when you have read enough Caesar, even the grammatically crazy sentences are quite formulaic. Okay, so once you kind of learn Caesar's tricks, Caesar isn't so mystifying. Okay, so study these two sentences very well. There's a mini Socrative with 4 questions available for you today, and the full Socrative will be on Thursday. I'm, of course, always in the Google Meet to answer any questions and go over things with you before you hit submit. Have a good week.